Hello and Happy New Year. My name is Rachel Reynolds, and I am the Director of Customer Experience for Broadloom's Business Management System platform. In this training video, I will be covering 1099 preparation, including the ability to electronically file 1099 NECs and generate a paper 1096. Before generating 1099s, I recommend reviewing the vendor listing and confirming all vendors that should be receiving a 1099 have a Social Security number or tax ID number listed, in addition to an appropriate vendor type. This report can be generated through accounts payable reports, vendor listing. Toggle to select all vendors regardless of status, and click to export to Excel. Once the file downloads and opens, focus on columns S as in Sierra and U as in uniform. If any of the vendors need fields updated, navigate back to the Accounts Payable menu, then select Vendor Maintenance. Identify and select the vendor to edit, and make any changes on the screen, being sure to press Save when finished. The Social Security or tax ID number is here. Please note that the system will attempt to produce a Form 1099 for any vendor with data in this field. Additionally, if data exists in this field, the IRS backup withholding can also be toggled, including entering an integer to represent the percentage of the withholding necessary. The vendor type can be selected using the dropdown. If a new vendor type is necessary or edits are needed to an existing code, navigate back to the Accounts Payable menu, then select Vendor Type Maintenance. The grid shows the existing vendor types. Highlight and right-click to edit or delete. To create a new vendor type, press the Add button, give it a code up to 3 alphanumeric characters, as well as a name up to 20 alphanumeric characters. The 1099 subcontractor toggle will change the merchandise balance field in AP Open Item Maintenance to a taxable amount field. So this is really only needed for any of your installers who will be processed through the Installer Payables module. The 1099 payment type corresponds to the appropriate 1099 report. Please note that any vendor types flagged as miscellaneous or NEC will print on the Form 1099 NEC. Now that we're ready to print our 1099s, let's head back to the Accounts Payable menu, go into AP Reports Menu 1, AP Reports Menu 2, and then print AP Form 1099. If this is your first time using this module, it may be necessary to key in your TIN number. Going forward, however, this will auto-populate like it did in this example. At the 1099 type field, we've removed the leading numbers from the list, but everything's in the same order. This is the distinction we've just discussed that's set at the vendor type maintenance level. The default is 1099 NEC, but all of the different miscellaneous forms are included, including rents, royalties, medical payments, other payments, or all. The option for interest and dividends also exists. At the report type level, we again removed the sequencing from the beginning of the field. Everything is still in the same order, though. The default is 1099 to laser. However, the data can still also be printed to dot matrix printers. You can opt to view just a display on screen of the totals. There's also a 1099 calculation report. And one thing to note here is that the calculations are based off of paid items. So thinking of check or payment history, if there are open invoices for a 1099 vendor, it will not be included in the calculation for that calendar year. Lastly, there's also an exception report. And this will generally point out if we have a vendor that may have been deleted through vendor maintenance, though they've had taxable payments made to them over the year. The report year field will default to the last closed year in the system. However, it automatically moves forward on January 1st of the next year. The beginning and ending date will always show January 1st to December 31st of the report year selected. This can be narrowed down if necessary. The form offset lines have to do when printing and lining up the data with the actual form. You can also opt to print for a single vendor ID, though the default is to print for everyone within this particular type. Last but not least, you can also print a test page, so that way we're only printing 2 vendors at a time rather than every vendor that might have a 1099 that needs to be populated. This would allow you to confirm that your offset in your printing is matching the form spacing. When you're ready to print, either to a laser or a dot matrix printer, be sure to load the forms in your printer before proceeding. Now for some changes for the 2024 tax year. First off, Telephone 1 has been confirmed to print on all paper 1099 report types. The remaining changes are specific to non-employee compensation or NEC vendors, and that includes electric filing of 1099 NECs. Please note to e-file, you must have a transmitter control code or a TCC, which is issued by the IRS. Additionally, you will need login information to the IRS's Filing Information Returns Electronically or FIRE test and production sites. This may include 1 or more PINs. The first change made to accommodate e-filing 1099 NECs is back in vendor maintenance. Two new 40-character fields have been added in the mailing address section. The first is IRS name to. This was added for vendors with long names, or maybe DBAs, that exceeded the length of the regular name field, or maybe even bled into the address 1 field. The second new field is the IRS address field. This would be for long addresses, maybe including apartment or suite numbers, that did not fit onto a single address field. Please note that it may be necessary to duplicate all or part of the data from the regular mailing address fields into the IRS fields. And be sure to press save if any changes are made. The remaining changes are in the print AP form 1099. At the top toolbar, there's a new 1099 maintenance program. These are fields that are either suggested or, if there's an asterisk, required by the IRS that aren't available elsewhere in the system. Some also have a pop-up with additional information of what should be included in the field. These fields and others are defined in the publication 1220, which can be viewed here. Make any changes and press save. Moving back to the previous screen, if the 1099 type is 1099 NEC, there's actually 2 additional reports I didn't cover earlier. The first one being the electric 1099 report. If this is selected, you'll notice some things become inactive, in addition to this test file toggle. Now, the report that outputs here is very similar whether or not this is toggled, but you'll want to make sure you're using the appropriate IRS FIRE either test or production environment, depending on whether or not you've opted to print a test file. I'm going to go ahead and say no to reprint my original return. And this is just an example of what the output looks like. There's some header information. These B records are the actual individual payees. There's also some finalization records as well. This text file is what will be uploaded to the FIRE sites. Hopping back into the system, the other report I didn't cover earlier is the 1096 NEC. Now, selecting this gives us a slightly different option in terms of offset. but everything else remains the same. Just remember before pressing print to load the actual 1096 form into your printer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please direct any questions to support using one of the following methods.